Christine Bailey was born Christine Mary Dutton in Melbourne, Australia on the 8th of February 1952. Her British parents Alan and Mari had been part of the post-World War II migration known as 10-pound Poms. Christine spoke of her childhood as one of the best times of her life. As a baby boomer, she enjoyed many playmates in her street throughout the 50s and 60s. One of the worst events in her life was when her mother died in 1968. Christine was only 16 years old, and with 3 older brothers and a father, she became the only woman in the house. In 1974, she moved to St Helens, Tasmania, where she married Ivan Bailey and spent 19 years raising a family of 3 sons and running a fish factory. In 1993, Christine moved to Hobart, Tasmania, where she made great contributions to theatre and jazz. When asked of her proudest achievements, she mentioned these contributions, as well as her 3 sons. Christine's various cultural connections include the baby boomer generation, the fishing industry, and the arts, yet the 10-pound Pom connection relates closely to multicultural Australia. Before we investigate that, let's take a look at Australia as a nation. Australia relates to other nations within the Asian region as well as more distant Western democracies through trade, aid, tourism, migration and defence. Australia also has a relationship with the surrounding environment such as the oceans, the Great Barrier Reef and Antarctica. Australia has a long history of Indigenous inhabitants, followed by a short history of white British colonisation. Conflicts of ownership fell in favour of the British, leaving a displaced Indigenous population and injustices which persist. After World War II, British Australia began a transition to multicultural Australia. In 1945, with the lingering threat of Japanese invasion, it was believed that Australia needed to populate or perish. Migration Minister Arthur Colwell organised a migration plan to support a racially biased White Australia policy, which had been introduced at Federation in 1901. Despite supporting the racially biased policy, Colwell soon realised that the definition of white would need to be adjusted to meet the migration targets. Colwell carefully selected the first non-British European migrants in an elaborate attempt to appeal to public opinion. Restrictions on migration continued to loosen, and by 1954, after the arrival of 1 million post-World War II migrants, only about 1/3 were British migrants, and the White Australia policy was in its twilight.